Hello. So this is Karma Kelly, founder of the IRP and mentorship program. Today I'm going to talk to you about goals and objectives. In our orientation, I briefly touched on the importance of goals and objectives for your mentorship and wanted to stress that these are essential to a healthy mentoring relationship because some of their value is twofold and benefits both parties. Goals and objectives as a mentee helps you clearly think about and consider what it is that you would like to achieve in this term of your mentoring and also even beyond. Objectives takes it another layer down and helps you work on what you can focus on for this short term and especially during your mentorship. This also helps your mentor guide you on where you want to go. Without something that will help navigate your journey, your mentor will be a very poor guide. So, what you would need to do is provide the map. And we want to talk about analogy. You will be providing the map or the GPS that will kind of essentially show where it is you want to go, and your mentor will serve as your guide to just make sure that you're hitting all those turns and those hits for you to get to find your way. So I want to make sure I take some time to explain this because in this following week, I would really want to see on the platform all of the mentees start structuring their objectives in the platform that they can share with their mentors. So there's clarity on where you want to go through this journey. So let's get started and let's start with the big question. So, what are goals? Um, Essentially, a goal is an ideal end result you like to achieve. A goal could be anything, and it actually doesn't necessarily be ideal, but for the sake of what we're doing in this mentorship, we want it to be an ideal, right? Um, it could be as broad or as detailed as you would like it to be. A lot of us, when we think of goals, our goals are pretty overarching, and that's fine because typically that's what a goal is. That's it's not going to be as detailed. It's somewhere that you want to go, a place that you would like to be, whether figuratively or literally. So that is how we would specify a goal. And then we talk about what are objectives. Go back. There we go. So an objective is a specific step that you plan to take to achieve your goal. So an objective is not only taking into account of the ultimate end goal, like the ultimate end result, as you would say, but actually thinking about, okay, now that I know that's where I want to go, how exactly steps that I need to take in order to get there. So that is the difference between a goal and an objective. To talk about more about like the characteristics of a goal versus an objective, goals tend to be overarching. Like I mentioned before, they're a lot more broader in the essence of time. Like, for example, when we say a goal, like, I want to hit the bestseller list. Well, you could probably say within, the next, 5 years, that's your goal. That's a pretty broad timeline. And, you might not necessarily be, married to that timeline. It might be something like, oh, maybe 5 or 6 years, who knows? So that is a goal. It's tend to be overarching. It tends to be more broad in instance of time. And also, too, to that same example, it's often a constant, more long term item. So if you're trying to, your goal is to hit the bestseller list, it really depends on where you are now versus where you want to go. And then all those steps in between, there are probably many steps and many details and other milestones you will need to hit in order for you to achieve that goal. When we think about that in the same term for objectives, we know that objectives need to be more specific. They tend to be more specific. So, in your terms of goal of saying, I want to hit the bestseller list, Another specific objective that you would want to hit to achieve that goal is, well, I mean, essentially, you would need to have a book. You would need to make sure that you have a book that is ready to publish, and then steps of getting an agent and signing with an agent and then signing with a publisher. And then you'll get a little bit closer to your ultimate goal. So objectives tend to be a lot more specific. They're also a lot more immediate. So like if your goal is to hit the bestseller list, like you said, that's, a couple of years away. Whereas an objective would need to be something that you're going to do right now, as opposed to something that you're going to do much later on. So you want it to be more immediate in time, in essence of time, and you would want it to be strategic. Objectives are strategies. They're a way for you to get to your goals. So you'll have to think about what the most realistic steps that you can take right now that you have researched that tends to be able to get you to your goal. And in essence, with that, it should also be something that's quantifiable. It might not necessarily always be something that's quantifiable, but it tends to be most of the time. And what I mean by quantifiable means you're able to put a tangible amount to it, or a number to it, as they would say. So, how many, you say that your objective is to publish 2 books. Okay, that's quantifiable. That's your objective, is in order for you to be happy in your writing career, you want to write 2 books. So that's your 2. Or thinking a little bit in a different example, that you want to locate an agent, and that's your goal, is for you to sign with an agent. Well, then your quantifiable thing will be, I need to, research, 3 or 4 agents, and that will be a quantifiable objective for you to get to. And last but not least, objectives are more encouraging. I don't think they're designed that way essentially, but just by nature they are, because your goals are overarching and usually a long ways away. Objectives are a good way for you to see that you are making incremental progress. And instead of seeing something that is so far away that you don't think you're going to get there, seeing that you're making small steps towards where you want to go is very encouraging and kind of empowers us to continue to keep going. So let's look at this example of a simple analogy. So when you talk about goals and objectives, let's say that you're currently staying in Austin, which is pretty dope because I also live there as well. And you would like to go to my other favorite place, which is Denver. Really like Colorado. So let's say because you're in Austin, you want to get to Denver. So that is your goal. That is your goal to get there. You want to arrive in Denver for whatever reason. There's really nice sights to see there. They got some really fantastic eatery places, but I digress. So let's say that all of those steps, whether, how you're going to get there, however means that you want to get there, those are your objectives. Those are your small steps, your twists and turns, your ebbs and flows to actually get to your goal, which is endeavor. And some of those objectives, using the same analogy, when you think about what your objectives would be for your goal for get from Austin to Denver, is if you're taking a trip, you'd want to make sure you have time available. So scheduling a vacation, scheduling PTO time that's blocked for you to take time for you to travel. You would likely want to research and choose the best means of transportation for you to get from Austin to Denver. You'd also want to be able to calculate and save funds for fuel and food and a place to stay. And you also would likely want to research the weather so you can pack appropriately. Austin, Texas, and Colorado is very different in climate in certain times. So yeah, you would definitely want to do that. So these would be an example of your steps for you to take in order for you to get closer to your goal, which is arriving in Denver. So let's take that to a common writing example. Let's say that your goal is to become a published author. That is a really awesome goal. And there are a lot of you that have mentioned that that is what you would like to do. So notice that the goal is hitting all the notes. It's very broad. It's overarching. We know that there's a lot involved for you to become a published author. It also depends on the individual, and the steps that are involved depends on where you are in your journey, which paths that you want to take towards being a published author. All of that has lots of variables. So this is an interesting example for you to use as a goal. It is super broad. So let's see how we can shrink it down into what some of those objectives would ideally be. So, like I said, everybody's journey is different towards that type of goal, but some of the common objectives that would be tied to becoming a published author is you would want to make sure that you finished your final draft and had it polished and revised so you can have it ready for submission or upload. You want to be able to learn how to maybe write a query letter so you can query agents and publishers. Learn how to set up your author website so you can have a web presence and be able to build followers. One of the other objectives is to research at least 5 potential agents to submit. So that's the example that I used earlier, is something that's a quantifiable objective. Is you would want to set a number or an amount to the agents that you'd want to reach out to. Find an editor. That in itself is kind of a goal, to find an editor, and you can also break that down. So there's a goal you can break down in bite-sized pieces. You can also do the same for objectives. It's really just what your level of detail that you would like to achieve. And it really just depends on the goal. And I'm hoping that you'll work with your mentor to share what your goals are and just have them kind of check them for you of, are they realistic? Are there some areas that you may not have thought of, towards these, the objectives towards your goal? And we can start from there. That will help shape it. So with that, I want to say to aim on creating measurable, challenging, but ultimately achievable goals. So what I mean by that is you want it to be challenged. Otherwise, you're not going to take it seriously and you're probably going to drag. But you want it achievable, because if you have a goal that is so unreachable and so far out and takes so many multiple steps in order for you to achieve it, it will feel really daunting and you won't feel like you're moving the needle towards your goal. So thinking about this for the mentorship, it is a 6-month timeline. So think about it within that time span of 6 months. Really think about what you want your goal to be that you want to work with your mentor on. And that will kind of help narrow your scope. Now, it doesn't mean you have to narrow your goal. Your goal may always be that you want to become a published author, but taking that into consideration of, I want to be a published author, and that means I need to create some steps that will fit within this 6-month time span that I feel that I'll be able to measure and I'll be able to actually have a chance of achieving. And that is what the mindset you want to have for you to sit down and start writing your goals and then start thinking about, okay, what are the steps to get there? And then if those steps, I want to be able to present that to my mentor and use them as a sounding board to figure out like which one of these or multiple of these that I want to be able to, commit to for this time. Because if you make it too broad, you're going to get overwhelmed and ultimately discouraged. So objectives should be clear and help you get closer to your goal. So you want to make sure that your objectives are relevant, they're inspiring, they're challenging, and they're going to keep you excited. You want to keep the pilot light lit for your project and your goal, and you want to feel energized by it. It shouldn't feel soul sucking. And make sure to assign a deadline to your objectives so you can keep focus. Like I said, when the reason why goals, when they're overarching and they're broad, they feel really far away and they don't seem that urgent to you. When you have objectives, you get a little bit closer to the steps you want to take, and they should be energizing to you and will also keep you focused, is knowing that it's time based. So having something that is tied to a deadline to keep your objectives on point and on target. And we'll talk about the essence of having a time bound goal or objective for you, which I wanted to talk about SMART. So, if you have not been familiar with the SMART method, it is a fun item, and I lost my word that it's supposed to be. It's not an analogy. Somebody can post it. It's supposed to be acronym. There we go. This acronym is been used by lots of places, even in corporate spaces, on how you can define a healthy goal, a one that you feel like you can achieve and it's hitting all the notes. And we talked about all of these areas already. And this is how the SMART method encompass all those things that we discussed in this tutorial. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. That is what you want your goals and you want your objectives in order to be. So let's look at specific. You need to make sure that your goals are focused and identify a tangible outcome, because without specifics, your goal runs the risk of just being too vague for you to be able to achieve. We had just talked about that. So being more specific helps you identify what you want, and you should also identify what resources that you're going to need to leverage in order to achieve that success. So not only think about, narrowing it down, but also think about, well, what do I need to have in place in terms of, resources and items in order for me to get here? Do I need, to purchase a website? Do I need to get certain software to help me edit? Those type of things. You need to really dig into that. And like I said, you don't have to do this alone. This is the goal of you having your mentor as well, to bounce those ideas off so you can be able to, narrow it down and figure out what you want to do next. M is for measurable. So you should have some clear definition of success for your goal. You should be able to come away with this mentorship and look back and say, I've done this, I've done X. If it's something that is so intangible, it could be really hard for you to keep track of it. And most of the time, for writers like us, we tend to forget about it. And then we walk away thinking that we haven't done anything. So it's important for you to have something that's measurable, because it's going to help you evaluate your achievement. And it'll also help you keep track of your progress, which we also tend to forget as writers. So this component often answers how much or how many, or it can something that you can be highlighting against that you know that you've achieved your goal. A is for attainable. So your goals should be challenging, but it still should be reasonable to achieve. Like I said, you want to reflect on this component because it can reveal any potential barriers that you may need to overcome to realize success. So make sure that you're outlining your steps you're planning to take so you can achieve your goal, and bounce those off with your mentor of like, am I overreaching? Is this too much for me to be aiming for right now? Just have some honest discussions with them. R is for relevant. So this is about getting real with yourself and ensuring that whatever you're trying to achieve is actually worthwhile to you. So you'll need to determine this, and how this is aligned to your values as a writer, as a person, and what your goal is. And then if it's truly a priority focus for you, this R also helps you understand the why behind your goal. Like, really take time to think about that too. Like, why do you want to do this? Why is this important? And it may seem something that is, oh, of course, But it's really helpful to actually think about that and write that down, because sometimes we forget. And when we start unveiling that there's tons of steps and items that we need to do and complete in order for us to achieve our goal, sometimes the relevancy of it can get lost, or we can go into a tangent and not really focus on our original goal, or focus on one that's really not going to serve us in the long term. So you want to think about the relevancy of that. And ultimately, time bound. So every goal, so we talked about objectives having a time base. Goals also need to have a time base as well. Like it helps you to have a target date, because it keeps you motivated and really helps you apply the focus and discipline necessary in order for you to achieve it. So this answers the when around your goals and your objectives. So it's important to set a date and set a realistic time frame as well to achieve your goal, and just to ensure that you don't get discouraged. So I want to make sure that all of you know that you should start with some objectives to your goal and review it with your mentor. We're approaching week 2 of the mentorship, and I would like you to, after this tutorial, to take time, start jotting down your goals, and then start breaking down your objectives to those goals. And you'll start to quickly see, giving it some thought of, oh, this might be too much, or oh, this is, yeah, totally right on track. And some you might be like, I don't know, I might be on the fence. But whatever you have, just start drafting it, and then start putting your objectives into your mentor pitch profile. So in your mentorship platform, make sure that you're adding those in, and just make sure for your next FaceTime that you have with your mentor to follow up with them and share those, and then try to talk through them to make sure that you both are aligned. Because once you've locked in what you want some of your objectives to be for your goals, then it's kind of off to the races. At least you know where you folks are going to start, and your mentor will come away with knowing what it is that you want to talk about. And it just helps with the flow of things. It will help you feel like you're actually getting started. So please make sure that you do that. I'll be going around and checking records on the admin side just to see what objectives people are putting in. And if you have any questions around your goals, or if some of your objectives just want to bounce them off, or you even don't know where to start, feel free to reach out to me. I'm your mentorship coordinator. So just reach out to me via the platform or via email, and I will be happy to help you. Lastly, I want to take this time to help you remember that throughout this entire program, that progress is progress. Please do not belittle yourself or beat yourself up too much when you're not able to hit all the points that you would like to hit. Just be happy that you've hit some points, and take some grace with that, and give yourself some grace, and keep on, encouraging and inspiring yourself. You have a group of people in this program and in the IRP community that are more than happy to support you and bounce ideas off of you. And no matter what your goal is in this mentorship program and what your overall journey is going to be, just remember that, take one step, and just remember to take another step. And then that first step may be a big step. Your next step after that might be a little step. But you know what? You're another step further away, or another step closer to your goal than you were a moment ago. So just keep that in mind. And I am very excited for everybody to be a part of this. Remember, I am available if you need anything. And thank you for watching.